Growing up, I used to think my family was perfect, the kind of perfect people envied from the outside. We had home-cooked meals every night, family game nights on Sundays, and matching sweaters every winter. My parents were always around, always involved, never missing a school event, always knowing who my friends were, what I liked, what I hated. They said it was love, that they cared about me too much to leave me unprotected. And for the longest time, I believed them. I wasn't allowed to have a lock on my door. My phone had to be turned in before bedtime until I turned 18. Any password I had, they had too. They said it was for safety, that the world was too dangerous, that I was too naive. And maybe I was. Because even though I felt suffocated most days, I didn't question them. Not really. I told myself it was just how they showed love. That being checked on constantly, having my privacy monitored, was better than being neglected. At least they cared, right? By the time I entered college, I thought things would change. I was a legal adult. I got a part-time job at the campus library, started saving money in my own account, and even bought a secondhand laptop with my own earnings. I thought, finally, I'd start living a little on my own terms. But the truth was, I had never left their grip. I just didn't know it yet. It's strange how you can live your whole life under someone's roof, follow all their rules, and still not see how much control they actually have over you. Not until it's too late. Not until something breaks. Looking back now, there were signs, tiny cracks in the illusion, things I brushed off as overprotectiveness, but they weren't. They were the first steps of a betrayal I never saw coming. Started with little things. My phone would glitch, freeze mid-text, or randomly restart itself. Apps I had just logged into would suddenly log me out. My laptop, which wasn't even that old, began acting strange. It felt slower, heavier, like something was running in the background I couldn't see. At first, I chalked it up to bad luck, or cheap hardware. I wasn't exactly swimming in cash, so I figured maybe I just needed an upgrade. Then came the conversations. My parents would casually bring up things I had never told them, like the time I was messaging a friend about applying for a better job. And that night, my mom warned me, maybe you should stay where you are. That new job doesn't sound stable. Word for word. Or when I ordered a pair of boots online and hadn't even worn them yet, and my dad said, "So you're spending money on boots now?" I froze. How did they know? I'd always told myself, I was forgetful. Maybe I had mentioned it. Maybe I had said something out loud. Maybe they saw the box when it arrived. Maybe. I lived in maybes. I didn't want to believe something was wrong. I didn't want to believe they were doing anything wrong. They were my parents. They loved me. That's what I kept repeating to myself, like some kind of prayer I was trying to convince myself to believe. But the hardest part was the money. I'd been so proud of myself for starting to save. Every paycheck, I transferred a chunk into a separate savings account. My account, the one I had opened secretly just to feel like I had something of my own. But slowly, I noticed the numbers weren't adding up. A missing 20 here, 30. There. Nothing huge at first, just enough to make me doubt myself. I double-checked everything. No automatic transfers, no forgotten purchases. When I asked my parents if they noticed anything weird with the bank, they brushed it off. My dad said, "You're probably just forgetting what you spend." While my mom scolded, "You really should learn to budget better, honey. Money doesn't grow on trees." They made me feel like I was the problem. And the worst part? I believed them. That's what happens when you're gaslit by the people who raised you. You start questioning your own mind. You bury your instincts, your discomfort, your doubts, because they couldn't possibly be capable of something like that. Not them, but they were. And this was only the beginning. I remember the exact moment everything unraveled. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I had been working on an assignment when my laptop froze. Again. The fan kicked up like it was struggling to breathe. Annoyed, I did what I always did. Forced it to shut down, then restarted it. But this time something felt off. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was intuition. Or maybe I had just had enough. I downloaded a free antivirus program, nothing fancy, just something to clean up the system. I figured at worst I'd delete a few junk files and feel better for trying. Instead, what popped up made my blood run cold. Remote access software detected. Keylogger active. Outgoing data connected to external email address. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. The words felt technical, detached, harmless even. I Googled them, one by one. And the more I read, the more the room started to spin. Remote access meant someone could control my laptop without me knowing. Open files, activate the webcam, take screenshots. The keylogger meant they were recording everything I typed. Every password, every private conversation, every secret, every search. And the email it was all being sent to? It was my father's. I don't know how long I sat there staring at the screen. Minutes, maybe hours. My hands were shaking. I felt like my insides had been hollowed out. Like someone had reached into the deepest parts of me and stolen them without asking. They were watching me. Every late-night message to my friends. Every email to job recruiters. Every time I Googled how to deal with controlling parents. Every journal entry. Every budget I had quietly planned. Every dream I had whispered to myself when no one was listening. They saw it all. And suddenly, everything made sense. The glitches, the comments they made that I swore I never told them. The missing money, the way they always seemed 2 steps ahead. Even when I was trying to be discreet, they weren't guessing, they were reading. I slammed the laptop shut and stumbled to the bathroom. I barely made it to the sink before I threw up. The betrayal was so complete, so invasive, I didn't even know where to begin grieving it. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It wasn't just about control. This was a violation of something sacred. My right to be me, to grow, to breathe, to think, without surveillance, without someone lurking in the digital shadows of my life. I splashed water on my face, but it didn't help. I felt dirty, like something had been crawling on my skin for months, and I was only now realizing it. When I finally opened the laptop again, I took screenshots of everything. Evidence. Proof. Because as much as I wanted to scream, to confront, to cry, I knew this couldn't just be emotional anymore. It had to become strategic. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment that suddenly had a new meaning. Every time they told me they loved me, while spying behind my back. Every time they praised my maturity while reading my every thought. I wasn't their daughter. I was their project, their property, but not anymore. I waited until they were both in the kitchen, my mom making tea, my dad scrolling through his phone, like nothing was wrong. I had rehearsed what I was going to say over and over, but when the words finally came out, they felt raw and jagged. "You've been spying on me," I said, my voice trembling. "There's tracking software on my laptop, remote access, a keylogger, and it's linked to your email, Dad." My mother looked up slowly. My father didn't even flinch, just set his phone down, calmly. "I don't think you understand the full picture," he said. "It was for your own good." My heart dropped. My mom joined in, nodding, as if this was some family meeting we were all supposed to smile through. "You've been so distracted lately. Spending without thinking, talking to people we don't know. We had to step in before something bad happened." "Step in?" I nearly choked on the words. "You invaded every part of my life. You watched me through my computer. You stole my passwords, my privacy. That's not protection. That's control." Dad's voice got sharper. "Watch your tone." But I couldn't stop now. "And my savings? You've been moving money from my account. I saw the transactions. Where is it?" They exchanged a look. That smug, silent look that said everything without a word. "We redirected it," my mother said, "into a safer account, one we could manage. You're not ready to handle that kind of responsibility." I couldn't breathe. Without saying another word, I ran to my room, opened my banking app, and tried to log in. Access denied. I tried the password again, then another, then the recovery option. Nothing. My account was locked. I was locked out. Sat there on the edge of my bed, my phone in one hand, my heart in my throat. I felt like I was floating outside of myself, watching it happen from a distance. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. My own parents had cut me off from my own money, my own future, all because they thought they knew better, because they saw me not as a grown woman, but as a thing to control. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just shut down. Their voices echoed faintly in the hallway, justifying everything. Talking about how they had no choice. How I forced their hand. How someday I'd understand. But I understood already. I wasn't safe here. Not emotionally. Not financially, not digitally. And something inside me, something quiet and burning, made a promise. This ends now. I left that weekend. No dramatic scene. No shouting match. I just packed a bag while they were out, left a note that simply said, "I need space. Don't contact me." And I walked out. A close friend from college, Jenna, took me in without hesitation. I hadn't told her everything, yet only the parts I could say without breaking down. She didn't push. She just made up the couch, handed me tea, and gave me the one thing I hadn't had in years: silence. Peace. That first night, I slept with my phone off and my laptop closed. It felt strange, like my whole life had been bugged, and I was finally breathing air that wasn't being recorded. But I wasn't just going to hide. Not anymore. The next morning, I bought a new laptop with what little cash I had saved outside. Their reach. I created a brand new email, 2-factor authentication, passwords only I knew. And then, slowly, carefully, I began clawing my life back. First, I regained access to my old email by answering obscure recovery questions, things only I could have known. I traced activity logs, IP addresses, devices, everything confirmed what I already knew. My parents had been logging into my accounts for months, maybe longer. Next came the bank. I visited in person, explained what happened with as much composure as I could manage. The representative raised her eyebrows more than once as I told her about unauthorized transfers and revoked access. She helped me file a formal dispute. I left with a new account, this time one they couldn't touch. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I started learning everything I could about digital security. Forums, YouTube tutorials, Reddit threads. I learned about spyware, keyloggers, encryption, firewalls. Every night I studied like my future depended on it, because it did. One night I found a legal blog post. Is parental surveillance of adult children legal? I clicked, read, reread, and there it was in black and white. Installing surveillance. Software on an adult's personal devices without their knowledge or consent was illegal. Transferring funds from an adult child's private account without authorization could be considered theft or financial abuse. They hadn't just violated me morally, they had broken the law. That realization didn't feel triumphant. It felt grounding. Like the world was finally saying, "You're not crazy. What they did wasn't love, it was control, it was wrong." I wasn't seeking revenge in fire or fury. I wanted something colder, smarter, something that would leave a mark. So I kept learning, kept preparing, quiet, steady, strategic. They took everything they could, my trust, my money, my privacy. Now it was my turn, and I wasn't coming back for peace. I was coming back for justice. Taking back control wasn't just about recovering my money or regaining access to my accounts. It was about making sure they could never hurt me like that again, or anyone else. The first step was to contact the bank. I spent hours on the phone, explaining the unauthorized transfers and how I had been locked out. They were skeptical at first, but the evidence was overwhelming. IP logs from devices that didn't belong to me, suspicious transfers to accounts linked to my parents. I filed formal fraud reports and demanded an investigation. The bank assigned a case officer who took my story seriously. Slowly but surely, they froze the suspect accounts and reversed some of the transactions. But this was just the beginning. I wanted more than just my money back. I wanted accountability. So I gathered everything: the screenshots of spyware alerts, the logs of remote access, the bank statements showing stolen money, and the detailed record of every interaction I'd had with my parents when I confronted them. I compiled it all carefully, making sure it was clear, thorough, and undeniable. Then, anonymously, I reported them to the authorities. It wasn't easy hiding my identity, but I made sure to use secure email, encrypted messages, and never revealed my location. I knew the emotional abuse was as serious as the financial theft. The police took the report seriously, opening an inquiry into the digital surveillance and financial abuse. Meanwhile, I opened a new bank account with a different institution, one that required strict identification and two-factor authentication. I set up alerts for every transaction, no exceptions. Every device I used was locked down with encrypted passwords and VPNs. I even wiped my old laptop clean, replacing it with a brand new one purchased under my friend Jenna's name. The digital chains my parents had wrapped around me were finally breaking. The final and most cathartic step was the restraining order. I filed legal paperwork to protect myself from both financial and emotional abuse. The court granted it without hesitation. Given the evidence, my parents were ordered to have no contact with me, and their access to my financial information was permanently revoked. The fallout was seismic. Friends, family members, even distant relatives who had admired my parents' perfect image began to hear whispers. How could the people who raised me be capable of such betrayal? The walls they had built around their reputation began to crumble, layer by layer. I wasn't seeking to ruin them, but justice demanded consequences. And for once, they couldn't gaslight or manipulate their way out of it. With each step, I felt lighter, stronger, more myself. They had tried to break me through control and fear, but I rebuilt myself through knowledge, courage, and quiet strength. This wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of my freedom. Healing didn't happen overnight. It never does. The first time I sat in therapy, I expected to cry. And I did, more than once. But I also learned something I hadn't realized before. That none of this was my fault. That wanting privacy, wanting independence, wanting respect, was not only normal, it was my right. Therapy helped me untangle the mess of emotions left behind by years of control and betrayal. It helped me build back my self-worth, piece by fragile piece. I learned to listen to myself again, to trust my instincts, to honor my boundaries. Financial independence was a mountain I had to climb all over again. Starting from almost nothing, I opened new accounts, created budgets, and took night classes on personal finance. Each paycheck I saved felt like reclaiming a part of myself. Cutting off my parents was the hardest decision I ever made. There were moments when I doubted it. Moments when the weight of loneliness pressed down on me like a storm. But I knew deep down that it was necessary for my peace, my growth, my safety. Now I use my experience to help others. I started an online blog and social media pages dedicated to digital safety, financial independence, and recognizing controlling behaviors in families. The messages I get from people who have felt as trapped as I did remind me every day why I fight to speak out. Sometimes I still feel the ache of what I lost, but I also feel the strength of what I've gained. Freedom, voice, power. This isn't just my story. It's a story of survival and a promise to anyone feeling controlled or trapped. You are not alone. You deserve to be free. If you're listening to this and you feel like someone is watching your every move, whether it's your parents, your partner, or someone else, please know this. You are not crazy for wanting privacy. You are not wrong for wanting to be trusted. And you are definitely not a bad daughter, a bad friend, or a bad person for protecting yourself. Love without control is possible. Real love lets you breathe, grow, and be your own person, even when it's hard. It never demands your secrets, your money, or your freedom. If someone tries to take those away, that's not love. That's control disguised as care. You deserve better. You deserve respect. You deserve space to build your own life. Taking your trust back, your freedom back, is not easy. It takes courage, patience, and sometimes a lot of quiet, slow work. But I promise you, it is worth it. You are stronger than you think. Your story doesn't have to end in silence or fear. So start small. Set a boundary, seek help, learn your rights, protect your space. And remember, you are not alone. Take your trust. back, and your freedom will follow, because your life is yours to live. And that is the most powerful love there is.